We're about to begin the services for Mr. Leonard A. Worsek. Just a gentle reminder, folks, for those of you here in the chapel, if you have a cell phone with you, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. We also want to welcome everyone who's viewing from online. Officiating this afternoon is Rabbi Jeffrey Weil.
We'll begin with the act of kriya. Kriya means tearing, and the 4 children of Leonard Worsek are wearing the kriya ribbons. In the Bible, when something sad or shocking or calamitous would happen, our biblical forebears would do an act of kriya, an act of tearing, and it would be they'd tear their garments, in a sense, exposing their wounded and vulnerable hearts at a difficult time. So I ask Richard and Julie, Nancy and John to rise as we'll recite the blessing for Kriya. The blessing acknowledges God as the Dayan Ha'emet, the judge of truth. We begin with the words of the psalmist, Adonai, mi agor ba'ohalecha, mi ishkon b'har kodshecha. Beautiful words. Adonai, O Lord, eternal God, who may dwell in your tent, who may abide upon your holy mountain. It is one who walks the path of righteousness. It is the one who speaks the truth in the heart and upon the lips. It is one who would not harm another people, nor disgrace anyone. It is one who is honorable and who honors others. It is one who speaks truthfully and honestly in all dealings. It is one who would never exploit another, but rather would help those who are vulnerable. Those who walk in such a way, our psalmist says, shall never falter or shall never be shaken. Friends, Leonard Worsek never faltered and was never shaken, for he walked a path of righteousness and love and righteousness and helpfulness throughout his years. May his memory always abide as a blessing. Our scriptures have something to say at all the times in our lives, the happy times and also the sad times. And you'll find in your handouts the 23rd Psalm, appropriate to read at a moment like this. I'll read in part first in Hebrew, then we'll read it together in English. Adonai ro'i lo exar, binot desher yarbitzeni, al meit menuchot yinahaleni nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo. Together, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The words of Kohelet or Ecclesiastes. familiar words. For everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve, a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time when we must refrain from our embraces, a time to seek, a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to cast away, a time to tear, a time to sow, and a time for silence, and a time to speak. So this is an appropriate time to speak words in tribute of Leonard Worsek. I recited or re-recited a couple of psalms. There's one line in one particular psalm which I've always felt is among the most poignant pleas in all of biblical literature. It's from Psalm 71. It says, Al tashlicheni be'et zikna. Do not cast me aside. Do not cast me out in the time of my old age. It's poignant and it's pertinent. It's pertinent to the life of Leonard Worsek. For throughout his years, as you all, I'm sure, know, he labored on behalf of the elderly, those members of our society who are most likely to be cast aside, the elderly whom we tend to take for granted, the elderly who were, into the latter half of the 20th century, often relegated to undesirable homes that did not feel much like home at all. Leonard Worsek was a very busy man in lots of aspects of his life, professionally and in the family, the big, wonderful family that he has, that he and Barbara created, and yet he was able to carve out time from his very busy schedule to become a leader in this field, taking care of and providing for the elderly. And not merely in Chicago. Models for senior living that were created largely under his leadership for the Council of Jewish Elderly were replicated nationwide. Through his vision and his concern and his creativity at CJE, and also the work that he did at the Jewish Federation, the Meals on Wheels program was launched, for instance. There were advancements as well in immigrant housing and assistance to Holocaust survivors as well. Most impressive, amazing even to me, regarding his work for the elderly, is that he did not find his way into that field due to some life change or situation. That's how many people find their way into causes and organizations. For Leonard Worsek, his passion for and commitment to this work arose simply from his deep heart's core, as his children explained to me yesterday. That's really remarkable, and it reveals a lot about the hearts of this man. In a way, his concern for these people, for their care, for caring for them, that arose from a place that I guess makes some sense given his life. For his life focused on relationships. He may not have been, and this is from his children, hip or cool necessarily, but he was definitely social. The social ability was inculcated early for Leonard and brother Ernest early in their lives. Every week their grandmother would host the whole family, Caroline and Milton, his parents, as well as aunts and uncles and cousins, and they created together a really broad and interconnected tribe of family, cousins who were lifelong friends, and so forth. And this was the model for them. This was the model that he grew up with, and he replicated it. They all really replicated this model of family togetherness and interconnectedness in their lives and in the succeeding generations, as you see, with the families that have been built. There is no space, there is no daylight within these family relationships. And the beautiful union, the marriage, and I'm sure we'll hear more about this, but the marriage of Leonard and Barbara romantically illustrates this interconnectedness and this no space between them. They knew each other early, Leonard and Barbara, when they were respectively 15 and 13 years old. There were family connections, and at the University of Illinois, Leonard roomed with Barbara's older brother, Hal. Of course, they married. They had a long, long, wonderful marriage. They were loath, Leonard and Barbara were, to ever be apart. They wanted to be near each other, and even a single night apart was completely undesirable for them. They were also a very solid team, a partnering team as parents. Richard and Julie, Nancy and John were simply unable to do what children learn to do, which is to play one parent off of the other to wrest from them what they want. It didn't work with your parents, I understand. This may have led to certain deprivations, like fewer cupcakes or something like that, but it yielded tremendous gain as well, for it reflected and promoted the closeness within this family, a closeness that has continued to obtain as the family expanded to include Jeff and Lisa and Bruce, and of course Lauren and Paul, Jared and Ashley, Jamie and Jay, Mallory and Pete, Michael and Jeremy, and Noah. And it continues as well with these very cute ones here, that the great-grandchildren, to all of you, Papa Lenny, right, who would spoil you, I learned would spoil even recently with lots of cookies. One additional person, by the way, upon whom he made a great impression, I learned, was my emeritus at my congregation, Ezra Habanim, the Niles Township Jewish congregation, Rabbi Neil Brief. When I told him just minutes ago that I was officiating this funeral, he said I quote, a class act. He said he was a class act, and knew him from CJE and also Federation. We are at a very interesting time, friends, in our weekly Torah reading cycle. You know, every week we read another bit of Torah, the 5 books of Moses. We make our way through it. And right now we're approaching the finale, getting to the finale of the book of Genesis. Such a great story. And we'll see soon Jacob, the patriarch, as an old man. Jacob created family. By creating a big family, he really created a people. And so it was with your beloved patriarch and your beloved matriarch, Leonard and Barbara. They built a family, really a strong people, strong together, and I believe strong internally as well. That is apparent. Held together, this family, held together and connected by love and respect. At the very end of Jacob's life, he blesses his children. It's a big brood of people. By blessing each of his sons, in this case, by blessing each of them, he blesses the entire family. As Leonard, or Papa Lenny, was with all of you on Thanksgiving, I've just learned, he also blessed you, in a sense, offering final words, a testament, if you will, of his life, acknowledging, like Jacob did, that life is finite for all of us, and teaching, as he did throughout his life, as Leonard did, and as Jacob did as well, teaching what he had to teach throughout life and at the end as well. You have all, at that moment and over the decades, indeed been blessed. Leonard Worsek's life was a dugma, we say, a dugma, an example, a stellar example, really for all of us, for all of you, and for all of us. An example of building community, of living with meaning, of heartfelt giving, and of fully loving all of you. May his righteous example always be an inspiration, and zichrono livracha, may his memory always be for blessing. Amen. pleased to call forward Nancy first. Is that right? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for all coming. It's such a nice group because it's a mixture of daddy in every single way. This dad was a loving, darling, happy, and gentle man. As most of you know, he was, and sorry, Rabbi, I'm going to go over things a little bit to dot your I's, but he was so caring about his family first and foremost. He showed us how to be giving. He showed us how to love each other and support each other. He showed us how to care and always have each other's back. And that was him. Like, it was that simple. He just was that person that you saw, but even better inside. He had relationships with certainly his 4 kids, but with his grandchildren, each one of them, and his great-grandchildren, and his great-great-grandchildren, and he will continue, yes, and you, my buddy. He was a very special Papa Lenny, and he made sure to know what was going on in everybody's life and where they were going to be and what they were going to wear, and of course, what they were going to eat. That was always part of it. That was an important part of his nurturing way. And again, so very special. I just want to kind of go back a little bit to CJE, Council for the Jewish Elderly. And I see so many people here who worked with him, and I was lucky enough to do that as well for a while. And Daddy made a difference in not just that agency. That agency expanded during the 50 years that he was there, and he started it and he saw it through literally till his last days. He was looking at information. He was talking to people on the phone and pushing them around and telling them what he thought should have to happen. He was a strong and able person in that way, in that he felt that it was his responsibility to take care of the elderly. And he started this, as I said, 50 years ago. But so many things changed in CJ because of good people who worked for him, but him being the president at the time and also consistently working on this. And as he ended up in a CJE housing at the end of their lives, he was even able to still talk and be a part of the residents' lives too. So he could share what was going on internally and what needed to be cleaned up, what needed to be better, what was good. He changed the whole food deal there. As much as you can with kosher food, he made an attempt at that. But that was part of his life, and again, part of his legacy. And that's something that we were so blessed that he shared with us. And I think that each one of us have a piece of that that's so important. Another part that I want to just share is you can see that there are 2 sets of flowers here, the coffin. And Daddy made it very clear towards the last 6 months to each one of us individually, nothing went by him, and also the group of us saying that he had felt badly that Mom passed away during COVID. They both had COVID, they got over COVID, and then soon after that, Mom passed away. So we weren't able to give her this kind of a setting and share as much as we would want to share and have the community share with us. And Daddy always felt really badly about that. And he made it very clear to us that he wanted his funeral to not only be about him, but for his love for Mom and who they were, and to celebrate her. And so that's why we have the flowers next to each other, as they were always next to each other. In terms of Dad's priorities, he did work, but he again, the family thing comes back. He was a present dad. He was a loving dad. He did everything from tying bows on our dresses to checking out our dates to having liver sausage sandwiches when we came home stoned later at night. He was in on everything. So again, and to the very end, he was part of us, and we are a part of him. I want to talk a little bit about he and Mama, and it's just such a special story, and I know that everybody mostly loves their parents and adore their families and everything else, but Mom and Dad had an incredible bond that it's even hard to find the words. They loved each other, like in the truest sense. They were partners in the truest sense. They were best friends in the truest sense. And as the rabbi said, there was no getting in between them. There was no space. But they worked exactly together as a team. And so there was never discussions about things. It was, this is what Mom and Dad are going to do, and this is what we're doing. It was that simple, and that's how our ecosystem worked. They adored each other so much, as the rabbi said. They met when they were very young. My grandparents, both sides, their parents, were actually good friends, and they met each other very early. And Mama went to University of Illinois to visit Daddy, to visit her brother, Uncle Hal, and a very loved Uncle Hal who she adored, and went to visit, and she and Dad got along, and after that it was almost 70 years of being together. People could only wish that they had relationships like that. People could only wish that there was so much honor between two people, so much wiseness between two people. And when one fell off a little bit, the other picked them up. It's exactly what you would want when you said your commitments under the chuppah. They did that throughout their whole life. And I think that there was no getting around that. The rabbi had talked about the one night that Daddy had to be in the hospital just for a little procedure. And this was just several years ago. This is not a long time ago, but had to be there for a procedure. And we had such a problem. They were just watching him. It wasn't anything big going on. They were just watching him. And the four of us kids spent the night talking about, how are we going to let this happen? Mom was upset. Dad was upset. They couldn't be away from each other, even that one night. It was just too much to think that they could make it till the sun came up and not be caring for each other and being there for each other. And I want to sort of wrap my part up with their legacy is of love, and not only having it themselves, which is such a personal and special thing in life, but what they showed us in terms of being grown-ups, having families, having having children, and again, knowing their families and making that most important. So again, this is to not only Daddy, who we love so much and honor, but to Mama, who we love so much and honor. And we are blessed, and we're blessed to have you as part of our family and their extended family. So thank you for all coming.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Thank you so much. Richard.
That was good. And no notes even. No, she did good. Yeah. What? Yeah. Thank you all for being here. This crowd is a great tribute to a 93-year-old man who outlived most of his contemporaries. And you know, as Nancy hinted at, that my mother used to always say that my dad would have the bigger crowd at his funeral. And yeah, he did. He did. Now, as I said, it's in fairness. She died at the height of COVID, but nevertheless, it's very nice of you all to be here. And of course, my regret is that he couldn't be out here to share it, because there were only two things that our father missed in his 93 years. The first is a party that he never missed in his 93 years. And the first thing would be a party. He never missed a party. He never turned down an invitation. He enjoyed every one that he went to, and he always looked forward to the next one. By the time of this final illness, he was blind, he was near deaf, he was immobile, and he was tired. He was tied to 1 hour tanks of oxygen. But as late as last week ago, Sunday, he expected to attend our office holiday party at Twin Anchors in Old Town. I had to explain to him that it would be logistically difficult to make that happen. And his response, this was a week ago Sunday, his response is, well, we'll see what we can do on the 15th. Yeah. The other thing that he never missed was a meal. He loved eating, he loved talking about eating, and he loved thinking about eating. And he always did. By last Friday, he had taken a big turn for the worse. And I came over to his place in the late morning and asked Beth, his wonderful caregiver, if he'd stopped eating. And she said he'd had some eggs earlier, and we laughed that even though he was drifting from consciousness, his streak was still intact. Many of my childhood memories center around the dinner table. Our mother was an excellent cook, and the dining room was probably where we spent the most time together as a family. Dad worked downtown, and he always came home on the train that got to Glencoe at 6:08. Our mother was at home with us during the day, and she was necessarily the disciplinarian. Whatever we, or mostly I, had done that day had already hit the fan before dinner. And we learned pretty quickly that if Mom rendered a decision, there was no court of appeals in our house. As Nancy and the rabbi said, nothing could peel them apart. Dad led with a velvet hand. He wasn't particularly demanding or strong-willed. In fact, neither of our parents demanded that we pursue specific life destinations, yet all four of us wound up on paths that were similar to what they had taken all their lives. They both valued family more than anything else. The three generations that were able to get one more Thanksgiving with Dad are testament to that. He taught us responsibility to go forward in life and work hard and honestly at it. He was a real estate appraiser by trade, founding what became Chicago's preeminent appraisal firm, Mid-America Appraisal and Research. And in that role, he was an advisor to mayors, governors, and cabinet secretaries. He was also a tax consultant, founding Property Assessment Advisors. It was from that my firm, Worsek & Vian, evolved, and I owe much of my professional success to the lessons taught and opportunity provided. Dad always emphasized the imperative of serving the community. Closest to his heart were the Jewish Federation and Council for Jewish Elderly. We learned from him the importance of giving time and money to serve the greater good. And he served on the boards of both the Federation at CJE, and as the rabbi and Nancy said, he was president at CJE when it transformed its elder care model with the opening of the Lieberman home. He served on the board for over a half a century, and in later years, authoring with my friend and his, Alan Green, a history of CJE. And he then became the first board member to serve and live at one of his facilities at the same time, with his term ending only 2 days ago. Dad maintained acuity to the end. In recent years, his body started failing him. Macular degeneration took his sight. He was near deaf, and as time went on, he was increasingly immobile. Because he remained mentally sharp, he had a hard time coming to grips with the fact that he was no longer in his 40s and 50s. Undoubtedly, the thing that hindered him the most was the loss of Mom in 2020. He never felt whole after that. So it was that, faced with a choice of prolonging his life with mechanical breathing assistance or letting nature take his toll, he concluded he had lived a good life and would go forth without regrets or fear. He took the time to explain this to us, his kids, and to his grandchildren, and we got the chance to spend that special Thanksgiving together. And for that, we're all grateful. So, you have an empty cup here, but I want to say, to a life well lived, Dad, you won.
Thank you so much. Beautiful as well. Lauren and Jamie, grandchildren.
So thank you, everyone, for coming here today to honor our Papa Lenny. It really means a lot. Putting my thoughts together for this eulogy today was a very daunting task. It's very hard to articulate in words the legacy of somebody who has always been larger than life and the impact of someone who was so integral in shaping not only the person that I am, but also the world around me. It's an impossible task, so I will instead focus on the highlights of what made Papa unique to me. So Papa was the heart and soul of our family. Through weekly family dinners with aunts, uncles, cousins, and our great-grandma, giant family Thanksgivings with extended family, a lot of whom are here, and our annual Fantas family picnic, where he held court and served his famous and not very kosher ham. He facilitated a strong and unbreakable family unit that actually enjoys each other's company and, as my Aunt Nancy said, will have each other's backs forever. His devotion to Nana set the extremely high standard for me on what a healthy partnership looks like. When I lived on the East Coast, one of the strongest driving forces that brought me back home to Chicago was that I wanted my daughter, Lila, right here, to have the same, she was waiting for that, to have the same kind of close relationship with our family and for her to truly get to know Nana and Papa's love. I'm happy to say that she did. Once we moved back, Lila spent a lot of time with Nana and Papa while they were both still living. We had a lovely visit with Papa recently as last week, and we brought him a hamburger and he ate the whole thing. Papa was a historian and wealth of knowledge. When I was younger, he would take me out on field trips to important Chicago landmarks, like the Chicago Cultural Center, the Marquette Building, and since it had to be food-related also, the Berghoff and the original Al's Italian Beef. And he would teach me the history of the city he loved so much. He also documented our family's rich history going all the way back to Europe. Due to his meticulous research and record keeping, we have detailed documentation of our family dating back generations, a luxury that many Jews don't have. And as many people mentioned, Papa lived a life dedicated to service. Many people have spoken of his decades of leadership with the Council for Jewish Elderly, where he worked to ensure that Jewish seniors in the Chicago area be able to live engaged lives connected to community and with dignity. And I saw the fruits of this labor firsthand when Grandma Caroline, Nana Barbara, and Papa himself moved into CJE facilities, where they received excellent and compassionate care. His commitment to serving the community inspired my decision to pursue a career in public interest law, even though Papa thought I was nuts to leave a cushy law firm job for a nonprofit with a significant pay cut. Despite these reservations, though, he was one of my biggest cheerleaders, and he constantly asked me about my work and encouraged me. But most importantly, Papa was my friend. When we both worked downtown, we would get lunches together regularly where he would ask me about my life and tell me stories about his. His love of food and conversation made him the best lunch date ever. I will love Papa forever. I miss him so much already, but I'm grateful for the 40 years that I had with him. Watching him choose to face death without fear and dignity over the last few weeks was brave, beautiful, and inspiring. As my husband, Paul, said to me, Papa really nailed his exits. And it's true, and he nailed his life too, I would say. His memory will always be a blessing to me and will live on through all of us. So thank you.
Bye.
All right. Hi. So I am Jamie. I am Richard's middle daughter. And I've been trying to come up with the words to properly honor my Papa Lenny, who I will miss more than words I can put into words. I'm really lucky for the 37 years I got to have with the world's kindest man as my grandfather. Papa truly lived life every single day. As I told my sister when she and I saw him a few weeks ago, he did as he told us, he did everything he wanted in life. He had traveled the world, visiting places like China, Egypt, Cuba, and all over Europe. And on Thursday, when I went to see him, he and I were reminiscing about his last trip that he and my grandma took to visit me in London and to visit Lauren when she was clerking for the Supreme Court in Jerusalem, and just how special it was to have them come and visit. And my friends meeting him were in love with him just immediately. They thought that he was the nicest man in the entire world. As everyone keeps mentioning, he was extremely charitable. He served on multiple charity boards, but especially his work with the CJE. And they, in turn took such good care of him at the end of his life. He was extremely cultured. He read everything. Even when he couldn't read anymore, he found ways to do it. He loved doing research, and as Lauren mentioned, he had done the research on our whole family, and we will have these records forever, which are so, so wonderful. He was the original 23andMe. He, even as my father mentioned, wrote a book on the history of the CJE at 90 years old and had it published, which we'll treasure forever, and we made him autograph our copy. He was also the nicest person in the world, so to know him was to love him. So many of you have expressed this to us being here. But he lit up every room. Everyone who ever met him raved about how wonderful he was. He loved his family so much, and he and Nana helped raise our freakishly close family who prefer to be with each other than with other people. And he truly had a heart, he was truly the heart of our family, and he really made sure that we were always together, we were always taking care of each other, and everyone was looked out for. And as everyone's mentioned, he really had this storybook romance with my grandmother. They were obsessed with each other from the day they met until the day each of them passed. They were an amazing team who chose each other and took care of each other until Nana's last day. I will forever miss Papa Lenny, and I am so glad that he got to go out on his own terms after getting to say goodbye to his whole family and celebrate one more Thanksgiving where he got to eat all the food. He got to be with us all. I will take so many lessons from Papa and try to instill them onto my children. I hope they grow up to love each other, be as kind as he was, be as charitable as Papa, and think of others. Love strongly, be adventurous, and live every day so that they too can look back without regrets at the end of their lives. We will miss Papa so much, but I know he is reunited with Nana now. So, thank you. All right, come on, love bug.
Thank you both, and thank you all, really, for those lovely tributes. Very, very heartwarming. Leida hi reshit, uftirat tachlit hachaim k'masahem, ka'alecha tzmicha mishalav l'shalav. Birth is a beginning, death a destination, and life a journey, a going and a growing from stage to stage. And the life journey of Leonard and Barbara Worsek have come to their conclusions. As you said, they are together now, each other's embrace. We now rise, please, if it's comfortable for you to do so, for the memorial prayer, the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bam Romim, Hamatzei Menucha Nechona, Tachan Al Kanfei HaShchina, B'Malo Kedoshim, B'Tohorim, Harakia Mashirim, Et Nishmat, Lev Mordechai ben Moshe, B'Shir Achayim, Shehalach Le'olamo, B'Avor Shanachnu Mipalalim, Bad Haskarat Nishmato, Began Eden Tehei Menuchato, L'chein Baal Harachamim, Yasti Rechu, B'Seter Kanafav Le'olamim, for its word B'Shor HaChaim, Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'Yanuach B'Shalom, Al Mishkavo, V'Nomar. Amen. O eternal God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and the pure who shine like the light of the heavens unto the soul of Leonard Worsek, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, bring him under the cover of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May he be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. And we say, Amen. You may be seated.
The entombment will take place at Rose Hill Mausoleum and will be family only. The Shiva will be this evening, the Worsek residence, at 2086 Park Lane in Highland Park. That'll be from 5 p.m. this evening until 8:30 p.m. And just a reminder that if you're parking on Park Lane itself, please just park on the east side of the street. And there is other street parking also in the neighborhood. The family has requested memorial contributions to the CJE Senior Life, and that information is in the service folder you received today. And for those of you viewing online, it's on our website. If you did not receive a service folder, please, they are available as you exit today. The following family members will be serving as pallbearers this afternoon. When I call your name, please step forward. Lauren Worsek, Jared Olian, Jamie Worsek, Mallory DePrekel, Michael Worsek, and Harold Bruno. I'll ask everyone else to please rise as the casket is escorted from the sanctuary.